How Big Could Your Pumpkin Grow is a great book to use with kindergartners all the way up to fourth graders because it is full of information and it's a great fiction text with nonfiction in the back. So it's very dual purpose text. So some activities that we can use this book for in reading, specifically phonics, would be the ig chunk or the o chunk. Now last time we did O as in crow. Now we're going to do O as in grow. So we're going to reinforce that same skill. Again, if your learners aren't ready for phonics, you can work on the ig chunk using phonemic awareness activities and manipulating this small consonant, vowel, consonant words. Also, some of the words in this book are really large, so it's a great book to practice syllables and also spelling words by the chunk of the syllable for your older learners. Under word identification, this book is full of, again, contractions like last week and also compound words. And it's a fun one to match the two words that create the compound word. For a book like How Big Could Your Pumpkin Grow, I would have a picture with a word on it on a cutout of a pumpkin, and they'd have to find a partner who also has a picture with a word on it, and together they'd form compound words they would find in the book. After you have them create compound words, it's always fun to see if your compound words make sense, and I always do a sorting activity afterwards. So let's say, I know they won't be in this book, but some compound words that you could make would be snowball, sunglasses, suntan, butterfly, and then look at those. Do they make sense when they go together? Is a snowball a ball of snow? Yes, it makes sense. Is a butterfly butter that flies? No, it doesn't make sense. And so kiddos have a lot of fun making compound words, but then sorting them into two groups, the make sense group and the silly group. So that's something you can do as an extension under word identification for compound words. Under comprehension, it's always good to pair nonfiction text with fiction text. And this book does this already using the front story part and then the nonfiction factual part in the back. To extend on this, you could find additional nonfiction texts or a website about giant pumpkins and allow them to learn more about these giant pumpkins. And I have included one of those in our links section in the book area. Also, this is a great story for visualizing and drawing. So maybe you wouldn't show them the pictures in the book and they would be visualizing what they thought they saw. And then you could check their pictures with your actual illustrations at the end of the story. And under vocabulary, any of the words that were synonyms for big would be great to kind of make a little poster, maybe even on a giant pumpkin, of all the words that mean the same as big. So you can get that flashy word choice. Under fluency, emphasizing or teaching boys and girls how when we read text with big, bold print, we use a big, bold voice, and practicing doing that with either sentences from the text or easier sentences that might include some more sight words. And also, this story has question marks and exclamation marks, so you want to emphasize how our voice sounds when we read with those. With a question, our voice goes up, and with our exclamation mark, we use more emphasis on our sentence. In the area of writing, this is a great book, again, for synonyms. And we've talked about synonyms with big words. Now let's talk about synonyms for possibly the word little. And after we brainstorm words that are similar to little, you could write a new version of the story with little words. And every child could make a page for your book. Also, asking the boys and girls to write about what they would do if they had a giant pumpkin. And this book has similes and metaphors with the word big, so we could introduce or reinforce the skill of similes and metaphors and write some of our own. Outside of literacy, we can use this book or a book similar to this for math. I have included a website on the page, and it shows you how to estimate the weight of a giant pumpkin, because obviously we're not going to take that pumpkin and plop it down on a scale. We'd break the scale. So how do they weigh and estimate the weight of these pumpkins? And this is great for our older learners because they can figure out these formulas and plug in some numbers. Also, The website has charts, so we can practice the skill of reading a chart using real information, not just that information we see on worksheets or in textbooks, but this is a real chart of information that's gathered each year. Of course, we'll do measurement, and with pumpkins, we can work on circumference of a pumpkin, we can work on weight of a pumpkin, we can measure how tall the pumpkins are. So with our kindergartners and our first graders and even our second graders, you're going to introduce units of measure. Sometimes we use traditional units like our inch and our centimeter or meter. Sometimes we have to use non-traditional units. So you might say, how many Unifix cubes tall is this? Or how many, sometimes I have these little inchworms we use, but anything that they can kind of measure on standard is the first step to measurement. In the area of social sciences, you can look at geography and places around the United States, maybe even adding more places for the giant pumpkin to visit. And how would we grow giant pumpkins using seeds, and looking at that process. Last, I have a book that I would use for a connection, and that's The Biggest Pumpkin Ever by Stephen Kroll. This is a great story about a giant pumpkin, but it is fiction. It's about some mice, and each mouse is growing a giant pumpkin for a contest, and it's real cute. So you definitely pair this story with that story. And those are some ideas.